Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I am Dr. Nika White. I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC, Nika White Consulting, and we have been expecting you. We're so glad to see you today. We know that you could spend this hour doing so many different things, but the fact that you have joined us as part of our community means a lot. And because of that, we are committed to delivering a great learning experience for you today. I want you to know that if you are inclined to have this community to connect with you beyond this hour of time, then we certainly encourage you to drop into the chat your LinkedIn information. And while you're out there, let us know where you're joining the conversation from today. It's always a treat for us to see the many different geographies that are represented. And also, I want to make sure that I continue to highlight that this is our 5th year anniversary for Intentional Conversations podcast. And we are tremendously grateful that we've been able to be at it this long, but we would not have been able to do so without your support, your help. And so we are very grateful. I want to give a special shout out as well to those who are joining us by LinkedIn Live. Not only do we have a live community that joins us during this hour, but many times people will get their intentional conversations fixed by simply just going to LinkedIn and joining us there. And so we want you to know that if you are joining by LinkedIn Live, you are fully connected. Our team is watching the comment section there. We're bringing in your thoughts, your sentiments, your questions, comments into the Zoom chat here so that we all are fully connected. At NWC, we really do value disability inclusion. And as such, I want to let you know we have enabled closed caption for those who could gain value and your experience could be enhanced. And so make sure that you have that top of mind. I also want you to know that today is going to be a great experience for us to learn with and from each other. So the chat is our way of getting proximate to each other. Cameras are not required. They're always welcome. We love smiling faces. But the chat is also a way for us to, throughout this window of time, to stay deeply connected with your thoughts, your sentiments, your reactions, your emojis, all the things that can help us to know that you are tracking with us during this rich conversation that I know we're going to have. Once again, welcome to Intentional Conversations. We're so glad you're here. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let the conversations begin indeed, and that is precisely what we're about to do. If you're just tuning in, you have joined Intentional Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nika White. One of the things that we love to do at the top of the hour every week that we join for this podcast is to share some national observances and other information that we think would be of use to our broader community. So we're in the month of July, and although we're winding down July, it is still in the month of July, and July is Disability Pride Month. And so we stand in solidarity with all of those who are amplifying the importance of this month and making sure that we are doing what we can to create a society where all people have a sense of being seen, valued, heard, and dignified. And so July is not only the time we get to do that, but it is the time that we really amplify and highlight this observation. I also want you to know that July is BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. You know that I spend a lot of time talking about mental strength, mental health, radical self-care. And I think that it's important for us to keep the conversation going. We have to make sure that we are not only taking care of ourselves with our mental health, but that we also are finding ways to be able to safeguard against burnout, because burnout can certainly lead to stress-related illnesses and other factors that certainly could compromise our quality of life. And we don't want that. We want everyone to be at their best, showing up in spaces and places where they really can thrive. And so mental health is important. Make sure you're continuing to do all you can to crusade for that message. Now, many of you have heard us talk a lot about Boundless, and Boundless is soon underway. We have some individuals that have already signed up to be a part of our Boundless community, particularly those that are part of the founding cohort. But I also want you to know that now we have opened up our membership subscription, and there are other ways in which individuals can engage into this Boundless experience. This is a women of color community of well-being, empowerment, and leadership. And we talk a lot about emotional regulation, embodied leadership. It's a safe place for us to land and just be and feel really supported in the safety of others who are probably navigating a lot of the same challenges we are. So I hope that you will visit the website, balance.nikawhite.com, or scan that QR code and learn more and share it out with others in your network that you think would gain value from being a part of the Boundless experience. Now, I want to give you a heads up for what you can look forward to in future weeks as it relates to our guest co-host on Intentional Conversations. I'm excited to share that kicking off the month of August, we have Dr. Rosalind Cohen, and Rosalind is going to be discussing employee engagement, such a big topic right now where so many people are coming into the workplace with many different distractions just from what's happening outside of the four walls of their organizations. And engagement has become a really big conversation because we have to work even harder these days to keep our employees engaged when they're navigating so much outside of the workplace. And so join me for that conversation. I know that it's going to be one that you don't want to miss. And the second Friday in August, I am super excited about this one. We had her scheduled before, but we had to reschedule her. And we are excited because Mickey Bay is going to be joining. I love saying her name, Mickey Bay. She knows that. Mickey Bay, Mickey Bay, Mickey Bay. But let me tell you why I love saying her name and why I love being in her company and her presence. You all have heard me talk a lot about emotional regulation and how I've been on this journey to really help myself to be able to self-soothe and learn all of the things that allows me to be able to show up at my best. And this has been game changing for me, so much so that it has transformed even the way in which I approach my work. I am threading through all of my work now, some capacity of emotional regulation. I think that it's a leadership imperative. And so you're thinking, well, why are you sharing this now, Dr. White? And why are you sharing it as it relates to Mickey Bay? Mickey Bay is my ER coach. Yes, that's right. And so this is going to be a riveting conversation. Nothing's off the table. We're laying it all out there. I've gained so much value, and I want you also to be able to gain value from it. So join me on August 8th. And we look forward to having Mickey to be in the house for that conversation. Okay, so now it does me great pleasure to get to the point in our conversation today where I can provide a formal introduction for today's guest co-host. And for those of you who've been with me, you know that the way in which we like to do this is to read the formal bio. I do that intentionally because I think it's critically important for our community to know the accolades, the credentials, the experiences in which our guest co-hosts show up to the conversation, being a voice of authority on the topics that that individual will share. And so today will be no different. I am excited to welcome Peggy Sullivan. Peggy is a renowned keynote speaker, author, researcher, and expert in the field of overcoming busyness and achieving peak performance. With years of extensive research and a transformative methodology, Peggy has helped individuals and organizations unlock their true potential, but get this, without compromising well-being or happiness. I love that message. Her research backed framework has been successfully implemented by numerous individuals, teams, and Fortune 500 companies, including Google, Bank of America, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Ingram Micro. Driven by her mission to shift the narrative from busy to fulfilled, Peggy is dedicated to empowering individuals and business to prioritize meaning and happiness over the hustle culture. In her latest book, Beyond Busyness, How to Achieve More with Less, she teaches her signature busy busting framework, a practical 3-step methodology that has already benefited thousands, guiding them away from the busy treadmill and towards a life filled with intention, fulfillment, and remarkable outcomes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now just so that I can bring my guest co-host into view along with me. I'm adding her to the spotlight. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to invite each of you in our community to find those words of affirmation, those words of welcome, find whatever kind of emojis or reactions you can. But let's let Peggy know just how much we appreciate her being here with us today and how we are just really excited to hear what she has to share. But Peggy, before I release you and allow you to greet the audience in your own way, we do have a tradition here at Intentional Conversations, and that tradition is to ask our guest co-hosts to, as they're providing a greeting, to share something with us that we would not know by either hearing your bio, which we've just done, or looking at your LinkedIn profile. And so welcome, so glad you're here, and I'll turn it over to you to share your greeting.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And what I want to share with you is my name is Peggy, and I am a busyness addict in recovery. There's always been like too much to do and not enough time to get it done. But I was moving fast and I was making things happen until I had a series of wake up calls that let me realize busy isn't better. It doesn't mean we're more productive, we're happier, we're healthier, we're reaching the finish line. There is a way to escape what I call time poverty, and that is not having enough time to do what's really important.
I love that. Thank you so much. And this is such an important topic. And as I shared before the top of the hour, this is a conversation that is gaining a lot of speed, and rightfully so, because we're finding many individuals who are really trying to navigate burnout. And some of them don't even know that what they're experiencing is burnout. They think it's just, okay, I just need a little rest, maybe a weekend of rest and I'm back at it. But really, it requires a mindset shift. And it sounds like that is very much part of how in which you like to show up to this work and this conversation. So thinking about the fact that you've dedicated your career, Peggy, to this topic and to helping people to break away from busyness trap. That's how you refer to it, the busyness trap. I would love for you to talk a bit further about what inspired this mission. I know that you said you're a recovering, person that really has been in the busyness trap, right? But how did your own experience really shape the development of your busy busting framework?
Sure, I was in corporate America for really over 25 years, and I was slaying it. It was great. I had big jobs with very big brands, and I had thousands of people reporting to me. But there came a point in my life where I had a series of wake-up calls that I really couldn't ignore. The first was just a simple, normal thing. I came home from work. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, hungry. I hadn't shopped in forever, so I had to find anything to eat. And I grabbed a bag of stale pistachio nuts and I chomped them down. And then my cat walked over and basically said, Mommy, feed me. You haven't fed me in 10 hours either. So I threw some kibbles into his dish and I fell asleep on the couch. And next thing I know, I wake up and there's this gagging, and I look up and it's my cat throwing up pistachio nuts. And I look down and I notice I just ate cat food for dinner. There were kibbles in my hand. I was in such a burnt out haze, I didn't even realize I was eating cat food. I remember thinking, wow, these nuts are salty. They're stale. I better get to the store and get some new ones. But I was on autopilot, and I'm sure many of you know what it's like to be on autopilot. You just keep on going. And for me, after that wake up call, about 7 months later, my husband came home one day and said, basically, I'm done. I'm out. I don't know you as well as I want to. We never spend any time together. We're done. And then 7 months after that, I had a stress-related heart attack. I was trying to do it all. I wanted to have a great career. I wanted to be an amazing mother, a friend, all of those things, but busyness really wasn't getting me there. And that's when I took a step back and I said, there's got to be a different way to this. And I'm a research geek. So what I did was I just researched the topic thoroughly to understand the problem and develop a solution.
Wow, I'm taking all of this in. And first, I want to just commend you for being able to get to a place of recovery, because all that you've named, for many individuals, including myself, probably we would not have been able to come back from that and be whole. And so the fact that you're here sharing your story, that you've written a book that, demonstrates your ability now to help others to kind of navigate the busyness trap, I think really is a testament to your dedication to wanting to figure this out for you. And that willpower is really critical for that recovery process. When I think about all that you shared, the eating cat food, thinking it was stale pistachios, and the heart attack, your partner leaving because wasn't really satisfied with how in which you all were able or not able to spend time together. What I'm thinking about is those are some pretty they could be perceived as pretty drastic situations. And what I'm also keenly aware of is that there are smaller, subtle signs that lead up to the culmination that really is like this is the last straw. I must do something now, right? And what I'm hoping that we can do through this conversation, Peggy, is to help people to not get to those points of desperation where there's no other choice but to kind of surrender to what they're experiencing and get help, but to be able to notice what are the signs and how do I be more preventative around, breaking up with busyness so that it doesn't get me to those places of that could be sometimes a place of no return. So share a little bit about how you coach people in that regard.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, the research that I've done, and I've researched thousands of people, is that 94% of the population is overstuffed. They're busy beyond belief, and they want to be less busy, but they don't know how. So
Mm,
there's an innate desire to want to step up and have more quality of life, to work at peak performance, to have time to be your best self, to be in relationships that really work and really count, but people
mhm,
don't know how. And so for me, the first step that I tell everybody is take a step back, take a breath, and look at how much time you're spending on low value activities. Because
mhm.
we all get stuck in these busy traps, these
Yeah.
things that chew up our time, our resources in society. Our hustle society basically tells us to do them. Oh, go ahead and multitask. I had a friend of mine, Jennifer, who was a vice president at a accounting firm, and she was also the single mom of three beautiful children. And one day her sitter called in sick, and so she had to worry about the baby. The two of them, her two other children, were well enough to go to school. So she decided, well, I'm going to work from home, no problem. I'm going to multitask today. I'm a queen at multitasking. I'm going to put baby on my lap and I'm just going to do my work, and it'll be a longer day and a messier day, but I got this. Well, she did have it. And her day was messy and her day was long. But she got to work the next day. And what she discovered is that she had sent out hundreds of invoices for $11,000 that should have been $1,100. And so she made a mistake. And the truth of it is, we think multitasking is a great thing, but in reality, it takes us 2.5 times longer and we make 50% more mistakes. So, all of the data on all of these low value busy traps show that the patterns that we in they're not working. Let's talk about meetings for a minute. 83% of workers spend 1/3 of their time in meetings. Sounds right, right? Yeah. But a third of them are unproductive, says the meeting holder and the people who attend the meeting. So that means we're spending on average of 5 hours of unproductive time. And you start to think about all the patterns, letting interruptions in. The other day, I was working on a spreadsheet. I was in the zone. I was doing Excel things I hadn't done since my master's, and I was a moving and I was a grooving and I was solving problems, and it was great. And then there was a knock on my door, and I look up, and it's my second husband, who I'm happily married to, and he asked for a minute. And I thought to myself, don't stop. You're in the zone, you're focused. But I didn't. I just said, come on in, what's going on? And he proceeded to tell me we were out of ketchup. and we're having burgers for dinner. Well, let me tell you, I didn't really care about having ketchupless burgers at the moment. What I cared about was my Excel spreadsheet and getting back to it. So I shooed him away, go away, I'll talk to you later. And I went back to my spreadsheet. Only I couldn't remember where I left off. I couldn't remember the formula, the scenario, the what if statement I was doing. It took me 23 minutes to get back into the zone. I was paying what I call a switching task. And so the first step is eliminating these things that aren't getting us to where we want to go. They're wasting our time, they're busy traps, they're low value transactions. The reality is, there are lots of them that we've come to accept as part of our daily norm. So the first step is identifying and eliminating those busy traps.
This is really good. I love the practicality in which you're showing up to this conversation because it's one thing for us to recognize and even be able to agree that, yes, we do live in a culture where busyness is like a badge of honor. But the how to's is where sometimes we really fumble. So I love that you're bringing some practical tips and strategies that we could think about. So the low value activity, when you say that we have to identify the low value activity, I want us to get even more granular around that. How do we, first of all, take an inventory? It's really probably just sitting down thinking about what do you do on a routine basis, all the habits in your day. But sometimes it could be very clear to identify what is low value versus something that you're like, well, I'm not sure because I feel like all these things are really high priority and they're high value. So how do you get people to recognize the difference? And sometimes even it's probably just making a decision and a choice. And so talk a little bit about that, please, Peggy.
Yeah, I think when we're in a habit, it's hard to step out of that habit. And so I worked with industrial psychologists and HR people to develop a survey, a 3-minute survey that evaluates 21 ways we spend our time unproductively, things that get in our way of us seeing the finish line. And it could be something like, hey, you didn't eat lunch. You didn't nourish your brain. Your brain isn't working at full capacity. Or I didn't get a good night's sleep. I'm exhausted. I'm running on empty. I'm not working well. Or I spend my life in the email rabbit hole. All I do is look at emails and I don't get to get my work done. There are 1,001 things. And so the first step is to identify them. And this listening group is more than welcome to take my busy busting survey. It's a barometer, it's on my website, and it will, for you, identify what your low values are, activities are. And I always tell people, focus on one, just focus on one. Get a couple of
Yeah.
hours back in your week, see how it feels, then move on to number two.
Yes, I love that. And I love the amplification on focus on one, because for someone who is accustomed to a busy mindset, automatically they probably could think, well, I'm going to try to tackle five at once and I'm going to be able to be successful at that. But focus on one. I want us to make sure we're hearing that. Hearing you share some of the experiences, and I love that you bring such a storytelling factor to the way in which you like to talk about the work that you're so experienced in. But it reminds me that I need this conversation probably just as much as a lot of the clients that you work with, because as a founder, as an entrepreneur, we know that the weight of entrepreneurship is heavy. So we know that we're often filling our days and our windows of time with something that to us always feels urgent, important, and of value. But we do have to make some decisions. I remember when I early on when I started my business, my husband has been an entrepreneur much longer than I, and I would literally not break away for like bio breaks or even like to eat lunch. He would bring me water, he would bring me food, and I was like, I'm not a chia pet, Nika, get out of this. Come on, you are deserving of being able to step away. But it was like you, when I get such into a focus and into a zone, it feels almost like an inconvenience to have to step away because I feel like like I'm going to lose some of that creativity. But what I have come to realize is that when I am hungry, when I am feeling the stress because I have not, walked around a bit and let the blood kind of flow through my body, that's not allowing me to show up at my best either. And so, we have to really have these internal kind of conversations with ourselves and interrogate how in which our habits are adding to some of our demise. And so this is why I appreciate this conversation so much. And we do need to stop glorifying busyness or glorifying the hustle, right? And so I
Yeah,
want to
and
talk
it
about,
also
yeah,
takes courage to break away
yeah,
from a habit. And
it
you
does. Any
mentioned
kind of habit.
storytelling, so I'm going to share yet another story with you about a entrepreneur who started a small organization. It got large. He ended up having 6,200 employees, and he really believed in open communication. He wanted the communication to flow with his
Mm,
employees. He didn't want to be that leader that was inaccessible. And so he encouraged a lot of conversation. But he got to the point where maybe there was too much conversation. And he had noticed that emails were out of hand in his organization. He would get 600 emails a day, and he
mm.
felt pressure. He wanted to respond to everybody, but so many of them were low value emails. So he said, what am I going to do about this? I created a monster. So he took a step back and he said, you know what? I'm going to write an email, but this time I'm going to tell everybody, take a moment and think about your emails before you send them. Are you creating
Mm.
value? Are you giving somebody something they really need to know? And if you're not, don't send it. Took a couple of weeks, but he reduced emails by 45%. Talk about getting hours back in your day for what's important. So,
That is really good. I love that story. And what's standing out to me is that when a leader can take that initiative and model something like that, suggest it, model it, then it certainly has the ability to influence at a high level. And so I'm not surprised that the decrease in the emails to those who were more quality, more thoughtful, was the end result. I think that's really important. And it also brings me back to, again, the simplicity of it. Sometimes we think that this is going to be really, really hard and daunting. And I think that's our mind playing tricks on us. Sometimes it's just small, subtle things that allows us to be able to prioritize, again, what's going to create value, true value, versus what are those things that are kind of low value activities. And it reminds me of something that I've heard someone say before. Again, I draw from my experiences as a founder and an entrepreneur, and there are a lot of things that may feel equally important. And so, how I have learned to start reconciling where I really will put my energy, time, and efforts is thinking about it as a glass ball, almost like a ball, but a glass ball and a plastic ball. If both of them are up in the air and they're both going to drop at the same time, what is going to be the most catastrophic, result? Of course, the glass ball is. The plastic ball is going to bounce. Maybe it'll just bounce right back up, and if I can catch it, maybe the next hour or the next day. But that glass ball, it is crumbled. And so that has helped me as I have had to try to think about prioritizing things when all of it feels so overly important and urgent. And so I just wanted to share that in case it's helpful for anyone in this community. Um,
yeah, there's a concept I call the flywheel effect. And it's about building momentum. And there is a flywheel effect. When we do less, we can achieve more because we're more intentional, we're more focused, we're
yes.
we're really working on one thing at a time, getting it done and doing it with intentionality. And that really is the key. I mean, it's great to have a lot of balls in the air, but if you're focusing on all of them, then what is really getting done and what's getting your attention?
Right, right. If everything's priority, then nothing is, right? We did place into the chat your busy barometer for those who are interested in taking that survey so that they can have an assessment of where they are sitting right now in terms of this conversation. So I hope you will take advantage of that. So you talked about, again, your three-step process of busy busting, or there's some other, and I think the first step you were able to really give us a good understanding of. Can you talk through some of the other steps that's part of this framework?
Sure. Well, one of the things I learned about addiction is that addiction is habitual. We get a hit of dopamine every time we get something done and we feel so good. So we want to
Yeah.
do it again and again and again and again.
Yes.
And that's why busyness is so addictive. We are
Yeah.
forever chasing the dopamine high. So, how do we replace that? How do we replace that great feeling we get when we get something done, even if it's low value transaction? I wrote my first book about the neuroscience of happiness. And what I learned about happiness is that it's not a soft skill. It's actually a super emotion because when we're happy, we have the ability to focus more. We have more mental and physical energy. We're more charismatic. We live longer. We fight off chronic disease. I mean, happiness is this superpower, but we as Americans put happiness into this category that it's a destination, it's a thing. I will be happy when I get the new job. I will be happy when I get a new house. I will be happy when I'm on vacation. But that also makes it a little harder to attain and takes it out of our control. So, what I discovered is that the small little micro moments, the things we create for ourselves, the things that are doable, create the same results that the big things do. So, step number two is what I call mojo making, creating intentional happiness rituals. So, it's kind of no surprise because every day, normally, I didn't do it today, at 11 o'clock, I open a piece of dark chocolate and I take a moment and I actually smell it. And I gotta tell you, smelling chocolate just releases all this dopamine. It just feels so darn good. And then I pop it into my mouth and I close my eyes and after 3 minutes, 3 small minutes of eating 3 pieces of chocolate, it's like I pushed the reset button. And we can do this to ourselves and not lose a lot of time and a lot of momentum. So, step two is mojo making, and it's not just for individuals. I worked at United Healthcare for many years and I headed up their customer service department. And my job was to improve service metrics. And if you've ever worked in service, you know it is a hard job on a good day. It's exhausting,
Yes.
overwhelming, and mega stressful. So, my job was to improve metrics, and I walked in there thinking, what am I going to do? And then I remembered how happiness rituals really helped my productivity, my mood, my focus, and I began to wonder what would happen if we did them in the organization. So I decided to test it out before we spent money on processes and phone systems and all this really heavy lifting. So every day we got together twice a day and we had cubicle dance parties. We told jokes. We watched funny pet tricks. People announced their anniversaries. We sang happy birthday. It didn't matter. The only rule was 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes. We had to go into our Zoom camera and spend the time together. And lo and behold, after 6 short weeks, not only did the employees come up to me and say, wow, I'm not exhausted at the end of the day, but their metrics, the most important metric, first call resolution, improved 33%. So we tend to
Mm,
think happiness, it's a soft skill, it's this nice to
right.
have. I want productive employees. I want happy employees, but it's not a necessity. Well, if you want your employees performing at their peak, having happiness in the workplace is an accelerator.
I love that. It's, you called it a super emotion. It's a superpower. So we need to get out of thinking about happiness as an emotion that's just kind of maybe it's not as relevant as some of the other things that we think about in kind of professional workplace settings. But yes, what you're saying is that it's incredibly important. And I do believe that someone's mood and disposition certainly has a lot to do with how productive they are, how focused they are. So it makes perfect sense. And let me just say, mojo moments, I love a good dance party. So some of us are probably like, yeah, we're going to incorporate these 3-minute dance parties into our workplaces. But you're right. Just sometimes taking a moment to break away from what you're doing. And I know for those of us who feel like if we're going to lose our focus, get to a stopping point, but then allow yourself to break away and just to, and I promise you, because this is what I've been finding when I return to it, my mojo is back just by
Yeah,
stepping away for that
and the
short
big
period of
thing
time.
here is micro moments, baby
Yes.
steps that create macro results. You don't need to take an hour break. You can spend 3 minutes listening to your favorite song.
Yeah, yeah. Some of us feel guilty about moments of joy. Like I was sensing that maybe there's some people and some people as me that are thinking, okay, so if I were to spend that much time kind of taking a piece of chocolate, as much as I love chocolate as well, kind of unwrapping it and smelling it, am I gonna feel at the end of that like, what am I doing? Speed this up, get to the next thing. But what I've heard you say, not the precise words, but just the sentiment, is that those moments of joy have such great power and bringing us to our full selves where we can then kind of operate at our highest. And so do not undermine and underestimate the value of those micro moments of joy because we know that the hard moments are going to come in our day. We know
And
that we should be
it
able
can be
to.
as simple as not doing something for yourself. One of my most
Yeah.
favorite micro moments is there is a Maroon 5 song called Sugar. And it's about Maroon 5 crashing all these weddings many, many years ago and singing at them, and the delight of the families, the brides, the grooms, when all of a sudden they had this big, famous band being there. And it's 3 minutes, and the joy on people's faces, the surprise, the delight. I mean, that ignites me up all the time. Besides, it's great dance party music. So there's so many different tiny little things that we can do like that.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Everyone's going to go to the chat. If you're on LinkedIn Live, you're going to go to the comment section. We're going to add just one of our most impressionable mojo moments, right? Whatever that is that brings you joy. Peggy said is having her chocolate in the morning, smelling it, really spending time savoring the taste, all the things, right? What is your mojo moment? I want to see them. And while you're thinking of your mojo moment, I want you to know that we're at the point in time in today's show where we're going to be soon transitioning to take your questions, your comments, whatever curiosities that are bubbling up for you, we want to hear about them. So if you're part of our Zoom community and you do have a question or a comment you want to socialize live, all you have to do is use the raise hand feature that lets me know that I can invite you to unmute yourself and share. And I'll even add you to the spotlight if your camera is on. But if you just want to place your questions or comments into the chat, that is a great way to connect us as well. And for those that are on LinkedIn Live, you can also place your questions into the comment section and we will get to as many as we can with the time that we have left. I just want to kind of see what's happening right now. Take walks outside. Yes, being one with nature definitely is a way to kind of improve our mood. And so I love that you shared that. Iced coffee in the afternoon, and I found protein iced coffee double win. Okay, I like that. Listening to Ariana Grande in the shower. Yes. 5-minute walk in nature. So this is great, and I think that it just forces us to be one with understanding what are those moments of joy, so that if we're feeling a little bit like our mood needs to be shifted, we can immediately go to those things. And so keep those thoughts coming into the chat while you're percolating maybe on your questions. I'm going to go to the next question that I have for Peggy. And I want to talk about how in which you reconcile for people the importance of emphasizing performance, because let's grant it, hands down, we know that we still need to perform and we need to be productive when we show up to the workplace. That is what we're being paid for, right? So with that in mind, I also want us to think about how does that correlate to also not compromising our well-being. So how do you help leaders think through ways that they can create that balance, especially in high demand environments? I think about Google and Bank of America, some of the places just that you've worked. How do you reconcile the two?
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about the third step in the busy busting
Yes.
process. We did talk about subtraction. So we eliminate these low value things, we get time back, we get ourselves happy, focused, and energized. And then how do we make decisions on truly what to say yes or what to say no to? Most
Yeah.
people say they lean on their values, but curiously enough, when I ask people, what are your values? They get stuck because values, there's so much pressure to identify the right ones. But more importantly, what values result in performance, quality of life, satisfaction, health, all the things we want? So, once again, I did some market research to really understand values equate to having a full cup at the office, performing, doing your job, doing well, and having a full cup personally. And what I learned is that there are four core values that if we use these to manage our time management is a $10 billion industry, but 94% of us don't have time for what's important. Time
We
management
don't have
isn't
time for time
working.
management.
It's not working, but values management as a
Ooh.
replacement, step 3, that's what really works. And so the research geek in me did more research. I interviewed almost 20,000 people to understand what core values equate to this feeling I got something meaningful done and I feel like my life has purpose. And I learned there are four. One is self care, energy management. We spend a lot of time talking about that. The other one is growth, is learning something new on a regular basis, not being afraid. My dad always used to say, Toots, a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And
Yeah.
later in life, I asked him why he always said that. And he said, because when we learn, when we do new things, we learn how to flex our resiliency muscle. So when things get hard, we can step back and say, I've done hard things before. I got this.
Mhm.
And human connection, that's another one. I mean, COVID pushed us all into
Yes.
cubicles and a world of loneliness and loss of human connection. And so it's really important while we've gotten so used to Zoom meetings and text and all these ways that we do things, how important human connection is. Just really understanding and appreciating the people you work with. What do they need? How can you support them? How can they make your job easier? How can you make them look good? What type of reciprocity can you get going when you get more humanly connected? And the last one, not least, is authenticity. And
Mm.
that is really not just about stepping into your truth, but taking a moment and saying, not everybody's like me. Not everybody believes or looks like me. So it's okay to be open minded. It's okay to be empathetic. As a matter of fact, when we listen with two ears, we hear things and we find a way that combines all of our collective genius.
All of our collective genius. So there's so much that I want to unpack or just kind of pull out of what you just shared because there's so much goodness there. So first and foremost, I love the fact that all of the information that you share is rooted in research. It's not just this is how I feel, this is what's worked for me, but I also you're bringing us the facts and the data, and so I love that. Um, when you mentioned values management, that really struck a chord with me because we spend a lot of time understanding what time management looks like, and most often we yield the result of we don't have time for time management. But how can you not have time for time management? But then we don't spend enough time really managing our energy. And so I love that you brought the whole self-care into the conversation as the number one, and then the learning and the growth, being able to define success as did I learn something new today through my experiences, whether it was a hard experience or a joyful experience. And I think that's important because you started at the top of the hour really addressing that defining success success is something that's really important for us as well as we're thinking about the control that we have over our own happiness, which relates a lot to being, not just being busy, but making sure we're being fulfilled and productive. So I love that. And then the third one, the human connection. I talk a lot about community and connectedness, and so I am right there with you, Peggy. I think that that's also where we find a lot of our moments of joy is through feeling seen, valued, and heard through that human connection. That is how we are wired. I talk often about the fact that while it's called human resources, a lot of times we are more so treated from the second half of that as a resource, as a machine, and not as much as the humanity aspect that we're bringing to all of these workplaces. And so I appreciate that. And then fourthly, authenticity really resonates because when I think about all of those values that you have shared in the way in which we need to be managing those values. So much of it intersects with the broad conversation of inclusion and equity and belonging. And I think there's something that we need to kind of pull out because, the reason that intentional conversations was even started was to be able to intersect dialogue of diversity, equity, and inclusion with belonging, leadership, and business. And all that you're sharing, this is leadership. It is a leadership imperative in terms of managing ourselves and managing others that we really lean into this idea of breaking up with busyness and managing our values, seeing energy management as something that is an imperative, and also being thoughtful about how can we identify ways that we can, practical ways that we can, help shift and be more in control over our happiness instead of the opposite. It's just whatever life throws us. That's how we need to kind of receive it. So this is really deep and resonating, and I just want to highlight some of that. So I'm going to go to the chat. I don't see any hands raised, but I do want to see if there are any questions that are out here. So Deborah shared playing on the front deck with my dog. I love that, Deborah. Yes, playing with our pets. That is definitely something that brings many of us joy. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions, but I want to go to I want to talk about some of the key takeaways from the book. I mean, obviously, you've given us a lot of nuggets, but when you talk about the busy treadmill, we talked about the first steps and reclaiming kind of their time and their energy, but I would love for you to go a little bit deeper into how do you suggest individuals to advocate for intentionality within well-being if they find themselves a part of organizations where all that you're talking about and that you're preaching and crusading for is not even on the radar? How can they
Yeah,
advocate for themselves?
we often live our lives on autopilot. We have so many responsibilities that we want to do, we need to do, we feel obligated to do. But yet, maybe we say yes too much. And being intentional means saying, well, that would be nice, but it's not the right thing to do for the right reason right now. And I use those words together all the time. Is it the right thing at the right time for the right reason? Because that is what's important. I'm working on a TED Talk in Johannesburg. I'm so excited about it.
Oh,
And I've been
Johannesburg.
wanting
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm going with my son, which makes it even amazing because he's giving a TED Talk. So
Oh,
talk about a super moment. But
yes.
anyways, I feel this pressure. I've already done a TED Talk. It went viral. And so I feel all this pressure to have another one that goes viral and is amazing.
Yeah,
And so I'm starting to work on it now. But hey, I'm not giving the TED Talk till November. So while I can do an outline, write a little bit, I don't need to finish it now. And
right.
so the timing of it, and so the right thing at the right time for the right reason is really, really an important part of the equation. And also knowing that these things, they're not just personal, they're organizational. If you want to improve performance, bottom line metrics, these are the things that do it.
The right thing for the right time for the right purpose. And I would say that maybe also for the right person. Not everything we should be doing on our own. So we have to also, ask ourselves that question: is this for me to do? Your TED Talk, absolutely, that's for you to do. But some of the examples that we find ourselves in that's causing us to be, overwhelmed and busy. and not productive, it may not be things that are even really designed for us to do. So I think that's important. We have shared your TED Talk, the one that's out there that went viral, into the chat. So I hope that you all will take a look at that. If you found value from this conversation, I have no doubt that you're going to find even deeper value from Peggy's TEDx talk that's there. And so I want to go back to what we just talked about before, because while it may seem simplistic to just say, well, have the conversation about, is this the right thing for you to be doing at the right time? Some people are in those environments, those workplace environments, to where the output is so prioritized, to where the people orientation of it, even when someone is socializing around, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now. This is not the right thing that I feel like I need to be spending my time on, but they're still sometimes maybe met with some resistance. And so for those that are listening in and they need a way of kind of broaching those conversations that could be very persuasive, is there any data that or suggestions that you can kind of coach them on?
I would basically say that when we lead with intention, it means making choices. And sometimes I'm a visual person, and sometimes I'll put all these things down on a to-do list, and they'll all be starred, and I'll think they're all important. And then I'll take a step back and I'll say, what's most important? I'm going to focus on that thing first. That's going to get my undivided attention. And too many times we don't go to our management teams and ask them, say, hey, I understand that my job responsibilities are to do this and this and this and this. But, I really want to make sure I hit the finish line and I perform for you. But I really need some guidance on what's most important,
Mm,
or what can I eliminate? Do I have to go to departmental meetings 3 times a week? Do I have to participate in this one activity? Is this project really make sense for me to do personally when there are other people who are better suited to do it? So I think this idea of questioning everything and realizing we have power. We make
mhm.
choices when we are intentional, when we don't just say, let's not just get it done, but let's work on what has value. And our bosses,
Yeah.
they want us to be successful. They want us to perform. It's important for them that they get bottom line results. So when you ask them and let them help you and guide you in that decision making, it works out for everybody.
I love that. And that is also about the power of co-creating solutions together. So it's not just left up to one person. You're now kind of sharing in the path forward plan to get to the desired outcome. And I think that it brings about greater level of the propensity for support to be offered up. Because sometimes leaders, bosses, managers, they don't know. They don't know that you're feeling overwhelmed by all that's on your plate. And so sometimes just needing that guidance about, how are you prioritizing these different things that fall under my purview right now? So I mentioned a moment ago that what's striking me is the indirect way in which, things and sentiments of diversity, equity, and inclusion are finding its way into the conversation. I want to get quite specific with this next question, and it's about your framework, Peggy, and how in which it supports more inclusive, equitable leadership, especially for underrepresented voices, or I like to say underestimated voices, right? Who often bear the brunt of burnout and overwork because, oftentimes those individuals who are on the margins feel like they have to be superhuman. They have to work harder to prove themselves because they're already, targeted as maybe and perceived as not being as qualified. And so talk to me about how in which you see the intersection of your work and that broader conversation of equity and inclusion.
Look, every single person on earth has strengths and weaknesses. Every single person on earth has the desire to do a good job. We just need to set all people, up for success. Give them the
Mm,
tools to be successful. Understand their strengths, understand their likes, understand their weaknesses. We are human. We are in this together. When we rise up together, everybody wins. It's not about us, it's not about them, it's about all of us. living a life that is meaningful and purposeful and being open-minded and supporting the people around us who maybe need a little help or haven't experienced something. They don't know the how to. They're not really sure how to navigate. And it is every organization and every individual's responsibility to help people around them rise up, to give them the tools. And I know for me, it's very unusual, no matter what conversation I'm having with somebody, at the end of it, I ask them, how can I help you? What pain
Mm,
point are you experiencing right now? You
yeah.
know, is there anything I can do to help you with that? And so we start to form this relationship where they know I got their back and I want to support them and I want to see them succeed. And then it starts to really be a relationship.
Yeah, I love that. How can I support you? How can I help you? What are your pain points? Routinely asking those questions. And I say routinely because whatever the support needs are, they can change from moment to moment, day to day, project to project, right? So being very much aligned with that. I also love this language of, and I often use it a lot, and I encourage others to use it when they're really partnering with someone on an outcome that they're, co-creating. And that is, how can we set ourselves up for success? Or how can you help set me up for success, especially if you're having that conversation with your manager, your direct report. How can you help set me up for success? This is what I think my support needs are. That way, there's a shared accountability of the outcome, and I think that that really shifts the paradigm in a pretty significant way as well. Okay, well, we're 5 minutes from the top of the hour, but I want to ask you about in your book Beyond Busyness. Have there been any surprises? I mean, obviously, you crusade for this work, so you're a believer of it. Your life kind of speaks to that, and then of course your work speaks to that. But was there anything in your research as you were kind of preparing for this book release, or even after the book has released, that has been surprising to you, relevant to this broad topic?
Not alone, and that we are a hustle society that has the habit of wanting more. We think that more is more. We don't realize that less is more and that we can achieve more by doing less, being intentional, focusing.
Yeah. Peggy, do you have hope for a society where there is great critical mass of shifting to this mindset of breaking up with busyness? Because for some that's listening in, they're probably like, this sounds good. Too good to be true. It's never going to happen because we're so driven by, this capitalism type of mindset. And so we're always going to be trying to, overproduce and output. So, what do you say to someone who questions the hope around that ideology, that we really could be sitting in that place as a society?
Try it. Try
There you
it.
go. Just try it.
Just try it. If you don't feel that your performance is rising, your level of happiness, your focus, your concentration, you become a better human being. If you don't see those things happening, then don't do it. But you know what? My research shows that most people do. On average, people get 5 to 7 hours back in their week to be more intentional. So just take a moment, imagine the possibility. And for me, that's the fun in all of this, is helping people see the possibilities. What can happen when we have more time to focus on what's important, and when we truly understand that it's not about doing it all, it's about doing what matters.
Yes, yes, that is such a high point to end on. I do want to give you the final remarks today, but before I release you for that, I want to just thank you. This has been a very enlightening conversation, and I hope that this audience has also gained value from hearing your practical tips and all the different ways in which we need to kind of shift our mindset. It was really, really useful. I want to also thank this community for showing up, being a part of our intentional conversations audience. As I think about you closing us out, I want to just, give you a chance to share. Is there anything I have not asked you about today, Peggy, that you have a lot of energy and passion for that you want to socialize with this community as parting remarks?
I just want to remind people that this is your life. you can shape it into something that you really want it to be by making intentional choices. We are not victims of this hamster wheel. Life doesn't happen to us. We are what we choose to become. We are the decisions we make, and we can make better decisions every day.
We can make better decisions every day. This has been amazing. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your time and you sharing with our community. We hope to see all of you back again next week for another episode of Intentional Conversations podcast, where we will have Rosalind Cohen. Thank you again just for being a part of our community. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. We'll see you again soon. Bye bye.